Azkaban Prison. It is probably the worst place to go in the entire Wizarding world. It takes the life out of you thanks to the Dementors, and it's almost impossible to escape being surrounded by iron walls and placed in the middle of the ocean. Those that are sentenced to the prison go through absolute hell, and in this video I'm going to go over every single person that went there, what they were sentenced for, and what ended up happening to them. Now, this video will be covering canon information from the series, meaning that games like Hogwarts Mystery won't be accounted for, but other games that are canon to the Wizarding world like Hogwarts Legacy will be included. If you like this video, hit that like button. It will greatly help the channel with the algorithm, meaning I can make more fun videos like this one. And if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, and you can also follow me on some of my other social medias, all of which are linked down below, and all of which house similar content that I do here on this channel. Now that I've said that, let's get the video started. Carlotta Pinkstone. Carlotta fought against the Statute of Secrecy, which was the law that kept magic hidden from the Muggle world. To protest it, she openly used magic in the presence of Muggles, and this led to a few different arrests and a few different stints in Azkaban. She ultimately was released every time she was arrested though, and crazily enough, she was featured on a chocolate frog card pictured in shackles, which might be the craziest chocolate frog card ever made. Theophilus Harlow. Harlow was the right-hand man to Victor Rookwood in the 1890s, and he was sentenced after a Hogwarts student named Natty, as well as the Hogwarts Legacy Avatar, revealed his wrongdoings of magical creature abuse using the unforgivable curses, including the attempt of the killing curse on students, and the torture curse on Natty right before he was arrested. He ended up staying in Azkaban for the rest of his life. Avery. After avoiding capture for his wrongdoings in the First Wizarding War, Avery was caught during the Second Wizarding War for participating in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries. He was later broken out by Voldemort right before the events of Deathly Hallows, however, and he participated in the Battle of Hogwarts, where he was once again caught and sent back to Azkaban. Sirius Black. Sirius was sent to Azkaban after being framed for killing 12 Muggles and Peter Pettigrew, the real murderer who actually escaped, and Sirius got a life sentence for this. He didn't end up going insane like everyone else in there though, mainly because of his obsession of knowing he was innocent. Sirius ended up being the only person to escape the prison unassisted. He did it by turning into his animagus form, which was a black dog, which the Dementors could not sense as well. He then swam to land and was on the run for the rest of his life until being killed by Bellatrix Lestrange during the Battle of the Department of Mysteries. Jugson. Jugson was another Death Eater who was caught during the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, and he was sentenced to life in Azkaban. However, he was freed during the mass breakout right before the events of the Deathly Hallows, courtesy of Lord Voldemort. But after Voldemort's fall in the Battle of Hogwarts, he was captured and sent back to Azkaban. Tarkin McTavish. Tarkin went to Azkaban for trapping his Muggle neighbor in a tea kettle, which is honestly hilarious. Crabbe Sr. Crabbe Sr., the father of Vincent Crabbe, avoided capture despite the fact that he was a Death Eater during the First Wizarding War. However, when Voldemort returned, he was one of many Death Eaters who were brought down during the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, and he was sent off to Azkaban. He was later freed by Voldemort, however, but once Voldemort fell for a second time during the Battle of Hogwarts, Crabbe Sr. was again shipped off to Azkaban, where he spent the rest of his life. Barty Crouch Jr. Barty Jr. was sentenced to Azkaban for the torture of Alice and Frank Longbottom, which sent them into a vegetative state of insanity. His own father was the one that sentenced him, and many believed that he was innocent as he yelled this very thing to his father as tears dripped down his face. After being put in Azkaban, his mother, Mrs. Crouch, soon became ill, and as a dying wish, she begged her husband, Barty Jr., to free their son. Crouch Sr. obliged, and when he and Mrs. Crouch went to the prison to visit their son, Mrs. Crouch switched places with Barty Jr. This worked because Dementors could not see, they only sensed people's souls, and seeing as both souls were pretty broken, they could not tell the difference between the two. Also, a bonus fact, Barty Jr. was the first person to ever escape the prison. However, later on in life, he got a terrible fate as he was given the Dementor's kiss at the end of the Goblet of Fire, meaning he had his soul sucked out of him. And that brings me to the next person who went to Azkaban. Mrs. Crouch. After switching places with her son, Mrs. Crouch ended up taking Polyjuice Potion to maintain the appearance of Barty Jr. until she eventually died in that form, and she was buried in the prison cemetery, everyone thinking that she was her son, Barty Jr. Crispin Kronk. Kronk was sent to Azkaban after he insisted on keeping several sphinxes in his backyard, and after refusing to listen to the Ministry, who gave him several warnings that this was not allowed, he was arrested and sentenced to Azkaban. He was presumably released a few months or years after, considering how small the offense was. Antonin Dolohov. Dolohov was captured after Voldemort's fall in the First Wizarding War, and he was imprisoned for the torturing of many Muggles, and most of all, the murder of Fabian and Gideon Pruitt, Molly Weasley's brothers. Dolohov was freed, however, during that mass breakout during the events of the Order of the Phoenix. After this, he went on to participate in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, and he was one of the many Death Eaters who was caught and he was sent back to Azkaban. However, he was once again freed by Voldemort right before the events of the Deathly Hallows, but he was later taken down by Phileas Flitwick during the Battle of Hogwarts. It was unclear if he was killed here, but I find it likely that he was, as he fell from a great height to the floor. If he didn't die though, he would have been sent back to Azkaban, meaning it would be his third time heading back to the prison. Percival Dumbledore. Percival, Albus Dumbledore's father, has a very interesting story. After his 6-year-old daughter Ariana was assaulted by 3 Muggle boys, an incident that left her traumatized and made her become an Obscurio, Percival, in a fit of vengeful rage, attacked those 3 Muggle boys. He was arrested for this, not only for going after the Muggles, but for also breaking the International Statute of Secrecy, or using magic in front of Muggle kind. He also came forth with no defense because he refused to say why he did it, scared that the Ministry would take action if they found out about Ariana's delicate state following the attacks, so Percival was sentenced to life in Azkaban, where he would eventually die. Mundungus Fletcher. During the events of the Half-Blood Prince, Mundungus was sent to Azkaban for impersonating an Inferius, which I think we can make an educated guess was part of either buying, selling, or stealing something illegally. He was freed with the many Death Eaters when Voldemort liberated the prison right before the events of the Deathly Hallows. Marvolo Gaunt. Marvolo, who was actually Lord Voldemort's grandfather, was sent to Azkaban for trying to fight off Ministry officials at his home, all of whom were there to arrest his son Morphin Gaunt for using magic on a Muggle boy, who happened to be Voldemort's father, Tom Riddle Sr. Marvolo and Morphin of course lost the battle, and Marvolo was sentenced to 6 months in Azkaban. When he was freed, the shock of his daughter Merope, aka Voldemort's mother, leaving him made him die an early death. Morphin Gaunt. As I said, Morphin and his father fought off Ministry officials who were coming to arrest Morphin after he used magic on a Muggle, and while his father got a 6-month sentence, Morphin got a 3-year sentence to Azkaban. After he did his time and he was released, his father was dead and he was all alone in the Gaunt house. There, he was eventually visited by Voldemort himself, who was Morphin's nephew, and Voldemort stunned Morphin, took his wand, went over to his father Tom Riddle Sr.'s house, the very person that Morphin had gone to Azkaban for cursing, killed him and his family, then changed Morphin's memory to make him think that he had committed the murders. When Ministry officials got there, Morphin admitted that he was the one who killed them, and he was sentenced to life in Azkaban. Albus Dumbledore eventually found out the truth when taking memories out of Morphin's head, and Dumbledore went to the Ministry with this evidence to get Morphin free, but Morphin died in prison before the Ministry had a chance to clear his name. Rubeus Hagrid. Like Morphin, Hagrid was sentenced to life in Azkaban after being framed by Lord Voldemort. Hagrid was blamed for the opening of the Chamber of Secrets, and the first time it happened, he avoided arrest thanks to Albus Dumbledore, who instead lowered his conviction to just expulsion from Hogwarts. But then, when the Chamber of Secrets was opened again, Hagrid was arrested and sent to Azkaban. He spent 2 months there, but was eventually released when Harry Potter and Ron Weasley helped clear his name, discovering that Voldemort had been behind both openings of the chamber. Igor Karkaroff. Karkaroff was sentenced to Azkaban after being a Death Eater in the First Wizarding War. After Voldemort fell and after he was captured, he made a deal with the Ministry giving them names of other Death Eaters he knew about, including Augustus Rookwood, and this information led to the Ministry freeing him. However, once Voldemort returned, Karkaroff was tracked down by other Death Eaters and they killed him for ratting them out. Bellatrix Lestrange. Bellatrix was sentenced to life in Azkaban for torturing Alice and Frank Longbottom into madness alongside Barty Crouch Jr. and a few others. However, she was freed during the events of the Order of the Phoenix during that mass breakout. Going from there, she committed many crimes, but she avoided being captured again and again, actually being the only Death Eater who participated in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries who was not caught, other than Voldemort of course, but he's not a Death Eater. Bellatrix was eventually killed by Molly Weasley during the Battle of Hogwarts though, in one of the most badass scenes in the series. Rodolphus Lestrange. Rodolphus, Bellatrix Lestrange's husband, was also sentenced for torturing the Longbottoms, and he too was sentenced to life in Azkaban. Like Bellatrix, he was freed during that mass breakout during the events of the Order of the Phoenix, but unlike Bellatrix, he did not evade capture for participating in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries. He was sent back to Azkaban, but was once again liberated right before the events of the Deathly Hallows, and Rodolphus then participated in the Battle of Hogwarts where he lost his wife Bellatrix. He went on to be captured after Voldemort's fall, but he escaped for a third time, and he did this just to find Delphine, the daughter of his wife Bellatrix and Lord Voldemort, and he told her all about her heritage and how she was the daughter of the Dark Lord. That last part was part of the awful stage play The Cursed Child, which technically is canon to the Wizarding World, according to J.K. Rowling at least, but most fans don't consider it canon because, well, it's kinda garbage, which I think you can probably see from that last plot point. Delphine Riddle. Speaking of Delphi, she was sent to Azkaban for her many crimes when trying to revive her father, including killing a Hogwarts student, torturing Scorpius Malfoy, Draco Malfoy's son, and also for trying to destroy the world with a time turner. Safe to say she got a life sentence for that. Rebastion Lestrange. Rebastion, the brother of Rodolphus Lestrange, had pretty much the same fate as his brother. He was captured for torturing the Longbottoms, was freed during that mass breakout in the Order of the Phoenix, was captured during the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, was freed right before the Deathly Hallows, and was captured and sent back to Azkaban after the Battle of Hogwarts. Lucius Malfoy. Lucius evaded Azkaban for a long time, despite the fact that he was one of the main Death Eaters during the First Wizarding War, but he was finally caught after being the head Death Eater leading the Battle of the Department of Mysteries. Because he was the leader, Voldemort blamed him for his and every other Death Eater's capture that night. He was liberated from Azkaban though before the event of the Deathly Hallows, but he was a rare case who would have rather stayed in prison than be with a livid Voldemort. Lucius once again avoided imprisonment after the Battle of Hogwarts, mainly because of his wife lying to Voldemort about Harry being dead, but also because he stopped fighting at the end of the battle. Walden McNair. McNair also avoided capture after Voldemort fell the first time, and actually got a job working for the Ministry of Magic itself, being the executioner who was meant to kill Buckbeak. However, he couldn't avoid Azkaban much longer, as he was another Death Eater captured during the Battle of the Department of Mysteries. He too was liberated by Voldemort though before the Deathly Hallows, only to get body slammed by the massive-bodied Hagrid during the Battle of Hogwarts, and he was knocked out, arrested, and sent back to Azkaban where he would spend the rest of his life. Sturgis Podmore. Sturgis was a member of the Order of the Phoenix, and while on guard duty to protect the prophecy, which just so happened to be the day of Harry's trial, Lucius Malfoy was there as well, and he put him under the Imperius Curse. A few weeks later, Lucius used the curse to send Podmore back to the Ministry, and instructed him to steal the prophecy, the very thing he was meant to protect. Sturgis broke into the Department of Mysteries, but he was discovered at 1 AM during the attempt, and he was arrested. He refused to speak about what he was doing in order to protect the Order of the Phoenix, and this subsequently landed him in Azkaban for 6 months. After those 6 months were up, he went back to help the Order of the Phoenix. Mulciber. Mulciber was caught after Voldemort's first fall, but he was one of the many that broke out during the first mass breakout in the Order of the Phoenix, and he was also one of the many to again be caught during the Battle of the Department of Mysteries. However, he broke out again thanks to Voldemort before the Deathly Hallows, but he was sent back for a third time after fighting in the Battle of Hogwarts. Stan Shunpike. Stan, aka the night bus attendant, made a grave error when at a pub one night. He made a statement to impress his friends saying that he had inside knowledge on the Death Eater's plans, which of course was not true. However, when the Ministry heard about this, Rufus Scrimgeour, who was just appointed the new Minister of Magic, raided Stan's home and took Stan into custody for suspicion of being a Death Eater. Stan was then sentenced and sent to Azkaban prison, and this arrest was one of the many things that made Harry refuse to work with Scrimgeour in the Ministry. When Voldemort broke all of his Death Eaters out before the events of the Deathly Hallows, Stan saw an opportunity and broke out as well. However, he was quickly put under the Imperius Curse by one of the Death Eaters, forcing Stan to fight in the Battle of Seven Potters. Once Voldemort and all of his Death Eaters were taken down, Stan was released from the Imperius Curse and cleared of all charges. Nott. Nott got away with being a Death Eater for the First Wizarding War and put that life behind him. However, when he was called to the graveyard upon Voldemort's return, he was sucked right back into it, claiming to be Voldemort's most faithful servant. This loyalty led him to the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, and he was embarrassingly taken down by the kids before the Order of the Phoenix even arrived. Yikes. He was subsequently caught and sent to Azkaban, but Voldemort broke him out a year later. He then participated in the Battle of Hogwarts, and when Voldemort fell, he was sent back to prison. Anne Thisbe. When Anne was a student at Hogwarts, she followed the directions of another student named Richard Jackdaw, but when she got to the place he instructed, he was decapitated, and Anne was accused of murdering him. A false testimony was given by Apollonia Black on the case, who was a jealous rival of Anne's. Between Anne being a Muggle-born and the power that the Black family held in the Wizarding World, Anne was sentenced to Azkaban, where she spent many decades until the avatar of the Hogwarts Legacy game proved her innocence. Augustus Rookwood. During the First Wizarding War, Rookwood joined up with Voldemort, and he was very useful to the Dark Lord as he worked as an unspeakable in the Department of Mysteries, a job that gets you more secretive information than perhaps any job in the Ministry. He passed loads of secretive information to Voldemort that really benefited the Dark Lord, and Rookwood got away with this even after Voldemort's fall. However, he was ratted out by Igor Karkaroff, who used him as a plea deal. Karkaroff was free, and Rookwood was arrested and sent to Azkaban. He was later freed during the mass breakout during the Order of the Phoenix, and like many others, he participated in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, where he was caught and again arrested. However, like many others on this list, he was broken out by Voldemort before the events of the Deathly Hallows, and he participated in the Battle of Hogwarts. There he killed Fred Weasley. And when Voldemort and the Death Eaters fell, I think everyone was glad to see him get locked up in prison again. Travers. Travers was a Death Eater caught after Voldemort's fall, mainly for killing Order member Marlene McKinnon and her entire family. He was broken out during the first mass breakout during the Order of the Phoenix, was caught in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries and sent back to Azkaban, then broken out again thanks to Voldemort, and when Voldemort took over the Ministry, he appointed Travers to be part of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. Travers was later one of the Death Eaters who arrived at the Lovegood's house while the trio was there, and he also fought in the Battle of Hogwarts where he was taken down by Dean Thomas and Parvati Patil, and he was then sent back to Azkaban where he would spend the rest of his life. Muggleborns. Umbridge, being the lovely person that she is, sent a ton of Muggleborns to Azkaban, saying that they stole their magic. So I'm putting all of these Muggleborns together, specifically the ones that the trio saved during their break into the Ministry during the events of the Deathly Hallows. Dolores Umbridge. Speaking of Umbridge, she was sentenced to life in Azkaban for what she did to all of those innocent Muggleborns. Unfortunately though, she went to a Dementor-free Azkaban as the new Minister of Magic, Kingsley Shacklebolt, took the creatures away and replaced them with Aurors. So Umbridge's stay in Azkaban wasn't as bad as she probably deserved. And there it is, all 32 characters that were sent to Azkaban prison. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can follow me on Instagram to see more of my personal life, like my cute dog Loki, and some behind the scenes movie flame stuff. I also do similar content on TikTok and Twitter that I do here on this channel, so if you like what I do here, check them out. All the handles are right below me, and links are in the description. Over here are my wonderful patrons. If you want to be featured on the next video, plus get a few other perks, become a patron today. As always, if you liked the video, hit that like button and subscribe, and look out for more great movie flame videos on the way.